Aloha and welcome to this screencast on play-dropdown-carousel. This is a spike solution. If you follow that link, you'll learn that spike solutions are a technical term for when you don't understand how to do something, you build a simple little program to help you understand how it works. And so that's what play-dropdown-carousel is. It's a simple little program that I want you to write so that you get familiar with how to do drop-down menus and how to do carousels, and without being encumbered by all the other kind of application requirements. The other reason I want you to do this is because what that is going to provide you with is a little snippet of code, a small little play application that you can use in future. Whenever you need to use a drop-down menu or a carousel, you can refer back to this sample system and have some simple code, easy to understand, easy to work with, that you can kind of copy and paste and then modify for whatever you need. So what does this thing do? Well, it's based upon Play Bootstrap template, so it looks very similar. The only changes are that you can see we have this drop-down menu. Now it turns out that all the elements of this drop-down menu, they all go to the same page. Okay, so they're not doing anything interesting, but they show you how to get that drop-down effect. The second thing is that there's this carousel, and we can click it to start it working. And once you've actually clicked the arrow to move it on to the next one, you can see it now starts to move through all the images every 2 or 3 seconds. Okay, so you can see that there's 2 pages in the Bootstrap documentation. This one's on drop-downs, this one's on carousel. And here's a little trick, okay? So you're looking at this drop-downs and you're saying, how the heck does that work? Well, you know what? It turns out that Chrome Developer Tools is your friend. Once again, you can actually inspect these elements in the Bootstrap documentation with Chrome Developer Tools, and it turns out what do you know? They're actually using that particular component in the web page. So if you're trying to figure out exactly how it works and the example doesn't quite give you everything you want to know, try Chrome Developer Tools on the actual documentation, and you might like it. Okay, so anyway, you'll want to start with these pages, and you can see that they give you some kind of template code you can use to start here, and then for the carousel there's also some template code. But really embedding it into a page and getting it to actually function is a little bit different, and that's why I think it's worth the time to actually just make sure that you can build one of these things. So let's take a quick walkthrough of the code. Turns out there's only really 3 files that you have to worry about. We'll start with main.scala.html, which is where, of course, we're going to put the drop-down menu. And you can see that what's going to happen is we have our outer navbar div where we well, if we want to get really out there, okay, here's the outermost navbar div, and that has the brand, and you can see we have play drop-down carousel. And one of the things I want to note on this is that normally in our template code we've been using the hash sign, hashtag, I guess, pound sign, for the href, for this navbar brand. You need to change this in this example, because it turns out that once you implement drop-down menus, this pound sign's not going to work the way you want it to. So in other words, if we just went to here and we just had the pound sign, we'd stay on page 1. It would say page 1 pound sign. So the fix to that, to make this whatever is called a brand, navbar brand, actually go back to the home page, which is typically what you want to do. You just make that href into a slash, forward slash. Okay, so that's one little thing you'll need to fix to make things work the way you want. And then secondly, so here we have our actual navbar nav list, and it's inside this particular element, this unordered list, that we're actually going to put our drop downs. Okay, and so what's going to happen is for each of these drop down items, we're going to have an outer li, which has class drop down, and then inside there's going to be 2 pieces. The first piece is what's going to be displayed in the actual navbar, and that's this a link, and it's going to be class drop down toggle, data toggle drop down, href pound sign, the name of it. And then by using this little caret thing, what you get, I think, which is really nice, is that little visual indication that this is actually a drop-down menu and you should click on it to actually get some behavior. So that's pretty important, I think, to provide whenever you're using a drop-down menu, just from a usability perspective. Then we have our own order list, which is going to be the drop-down menu elements, and so you use class drop-down menu, role menu, and then inside it's just back to your standard old list elements with a link inside that takes you wherever you want to go. Okay, and you can see in each case I'm always going to page 1 because I didn't want to fool around with that part of it for this example. And I just labeled it page 1 again and yet again, just so it's clear that these, you are going to these different menu items, but they always direct to the same thing. So that's basically how the drop-down menus work. It's just exactly like it's documented in Twitter Bootstrap, but make sure that you can actually write the code and make it happen. And now you've got some nice, once you've implemented this, you've got some nice template code that you can use in your own applications. Just cut and paste and things will go a lot faster. Okay, so that's that. Now let's go to the carousel. And the carousel also works pretty much just like the documentation. You almost cut and paste. For a carousel with 3 items in it, you have this first ordered list which shows the how things are going to slide, and then you have the actual elements that you're including, which has this outer div carousel inner, and then you always start with the first item being active. So that will be the one that's displayed, and then once you click the forward arrow, it'll start to actually rotate. You could add a little snippet of JavaScript code if you want it to start rotating automatically, but just to keep things simple, we're going to keep it that way. And in some sense, I think that things that automatically start to rotate when you visit a web page are kind of lame. So I actually like this default behavior better, personally. Okay, so the one thing that you're going to find is that in the documentation, they use an actual IMG element. Okay, and I found, if we go to the carousel, okay, what you're going to see is, this IMG source equals. And when I tried to do that, I just found that, my images were all different sizes, and it made the carousel look pretty junk. So what I am doing instead here is our little trick with background images. Okay, so I'm creating a class called carousel1. If we go to main CSS, the carousel1 class looks like this. It's going to provide a background image, which is, you could either kind of find it in the images directory if you've got the images there, or you could just apply the actual URL to the image. And we're going to use the background size cover and supply a height, and we do that consistently for all 3 of these, which means that when you actually display your carousel, no matter what the original size of the image was, it's going to expand to fill the exact same amount of space in each place. And so the disadvantage of this approach, of course, is you get this cropping, okay, which can be good or bad. The advantage is that it's a nice uniform size without doing a lot of special tricks with your images to make them fill out the carousel. So it's it's a trade-off, but I wanted to show you this alternative technique because it's kind of the quick and dirty way of getting pretty darn close to something nice with in some sense the least amount of effort. And the less effort the better, right? There's a lot of effort involved with web development just to start. So whenever we can reduce effort, that's a good thing. So you have so we have our div where we're going to insert our image, and then just like the documentation, we've got our caption, and you put whatever you want in there, doesn't really matter. And all of this is just the default stuff. Okay, so that's your play drop-down carousel. Go ahead, implement this code yourself. Make sure that you can get your own carousel working. Use your own images or use these. I don't care. It doesn't matter. And then you'll find that the next WOD will work good, or will go hopefully more smoothly for you, because you'll have some sample code that you can use.